I've talked to the News Journal, and more importantly, I've talked to and cooperated fully with the state attorney's office, entirely. They've issued their case. The guy that ultimately got in trouble for it, Jim Brown, has since died. There's no more blood to be gotten. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. $50,000 a shot, Caney comes back. 2 weeks ago, he comes back, yeah, a shot. Well, it's all right, but they give it to him at $50,000 a shot so that they don't have to go out to bid. So we're at $150,000 now. It never ended. Because one of the other co-defendants in the case, Ted Doran, is never going to stop. So the question to the county council, and I've asked this of several of the county council members, they won't answer. They flat out won't answer. They delete the post on their websites and their Facebooks. Are you prepared to go to the Supreme Court, to all the appeals that Ted Doran's prepared to do? For what? For what information? They've included Doran in this investigation. The guy didn't get a free sign from anybody. Nothing. So you can see that it's clearly a political witch hunt. If you look at just the facts, there's no doubt that you will conclude that it's a political witch hunt. And after the election, the whole thing will go in the garbage can. There's no doubt about it.
I want to put a little perspective on it from Mr. Machuga, because you gave a good summary and saved me from a 17-part thing. It should be noted that Mr. Kennedy here was a political foe of Ms. Denny's in 2012 with Mr. Hathaway, but Mr. Caney chose not to include Mr. Hathaway, even though he was concerned about Waverly, and because Mr. Hathaway wasn't a threat to run. And you, of course, Mr. Chuga, were a late entrant. I spoke with you earlier today, and you said you were concerned about the public's perception of investigations, and you made a statement to me, something to the effect of, you're the only candidate that's not under investigation. And I spoke to Mr. Kennedy about that, and he said, I'm not under investigation, I'm a witness. I'm being asked.
Yeah, technically, I am a witness to this investigation.
And to further, let me just interrupt you. To further clarify, Mr. Caney did tell the News Journal that was published that he will not provide anything that is of a criminal nature, but it's a mess, he said.
Right.
It's a real mess. Right. He's saying there is no criminal thing that's going to come out of this.
Listen,
and when
if you lose this election and you decide to run again, you will then become under investigation. That's Volusia politics.
Okay, let's try to keep it silly. Mr. Machuga, basically, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Hathaway was not questioned, even though he went on. Mr. Kennedy fell short. There was basically two Democrats against a Republican. It was a presidential year, as you know. And Hathaway was able to continue through. He won the primary and came up short in the general election. Mr. Hathaway is not being questioned by Caney, yet Ted Doran, who didn't take Waverly money, is. I guess that's because that fuels the charges going up. But Ms. Cusack, who's from DeLand, said that she felt it was a witch hunt because Pat Northey voted for it, but she's running for her seat because she's term limited out. Denny's felt that Kennedy was a threat, so there's the two votes right there. When does it stop?
All right, that's a 15-part question. You're
Well,
getting
it's down
better,
to
Andrew. You're getting better. First of all, I want to make this perfectly clear. I do not believe he did anything wrong, number one. Put that on record at any time. I think that the investigation came after him because he may have been a potential candidate against Deb Denny's, not because he did anything wrong. Okay, we'll make sure that's clear to the public, to anyone. I never said he did anything wrong. It was just that they were being investigated, inquiries, or whatever term you want, a person of interest, whatever. But I'll make it perfectly clear. I don't think he did anything wrong. I think the reason they came after him and they wanted to make sure of this is to eliminate a potential candidate or opposition for her. Unfortunately, I got in the election, which changed a lot of the perception, especially, and again, this is nonpartisan, but I have a partisan party that we all have, and there has been a real situation. You'll probably be reading about that in the Journal here in a few days. But answering your question, that is the reason it was done. They want to control what they've already paid for. And that's why the contributions were very strong. The information that he had about the donations and everything else are contributions made at the Hampton Inn almost a year before an election, with no campaign, anybody implying that they were going to run or oppose her, that she's building up a war chest.
It's almost $8,000.
$8,000. I basically, and you can report this, I had breakfast with her 2 months after she was elected to go there and offer support for her, anything that I could do. 5 minutes after the breakfast, the first thing she said we need to do is raise money for my campaign fund. At that point in time, I finished my breakfast, had a cup of coffee, and that was it. And then I had other people come up to me that she made promises to, that she won't even return phone calls to, emails to, and that's another reason. So getting back to the Waverly issue, that I think was being pushed very strongly to eliminate him if he decided to run.
Excellent comeback. Let me ask both of you this. Well, right, but I mean explaining it from Mr. Kenny's perspective. Today we published a story that says that Mr. Doug Daniels, who used to quote, we need to quote unquote lance the boil of Waverly, no matter how much it comes back on us. And Mr. Kenny, you said something earlier I wanted to correct you on. You said he didn't get Waverly contributions, but he did. $250 for booze for his party. Yeah. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that it was revealed that today, and our reporting shows that, from public records and that kind of thing, that Doug Daniels and his wife, Angela Daniels, who's the assistant director of the Ocean Center, she makes almost $94,000 a year, they were both claiming homestead exemptions well after 2 years of their marriage, basically saying his house and her house are each homestead. It's actually against the law. It's a misdemeanor crime. They got caught by the auditors, and the inside source told me today it was whitewashed by the county. And Mr. Daniels is talking about spending upwards of $150,000. What can you guys do when you get on the council and not be like they are? Mr. Machuca first.
Basically, the way I think we both have the courage to say no. And if we didn't take any money, we owe nothing to nobody. I don't know where your funds came from, but I just said.
I don't know it.
Basically, this is how it's going to start. We have to get in there involved where people aren't paid for to be in that position, because once they're in there, they feel an obligation. They feel that obligation, they want to fulfill their obligation to those who contributed to them. That is the problem. Unintended consequences, as I talked about. They think they need the campaigns for science and literature and everything else. They take the money from anybody, but somebody comes knocking on the door, time to collect. So it will stop when we get the right people in there. It's a very simple situation. It's not that complicated, but if it continues the way that it is right now, it won't stop. The only way it's going to stop is have individuals in there that are going to represent the people. And you can't serve two masters. When you get $40,000 from a couple groups, you're serving them. You're not going to serve the public. And that's something that I want everybody to understand. It's not going to change unless we change it.
Mr. Kennedy, lancing the boil. Would you like to respond to Mr. Daniels?
Yeah,